Another year, another Galaxy Tab. This is the best Android tablet out there, at least in my opinion. And I'm not just talking about artists, but for anyone. So does this new version hold up to that super high standard? Well, yes. Let's take a look. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, and that means that I want to draw on this thing because it's really great for that. It's the Ultra, so it's kind of big. Well, more than kind. It is big. This is the biggest Android tablet that you can get. It's kind of bulky for a take anywhere draw sort of device, but if you're drawing mostly at your desk at home or even on the couch, all of that extra screen space is really luxurious. If you're not drawing on this, it's still a great tablet, although I should point out, you probably should. It does come with the pen packed in the box for free. My intro to art videos are also free if you want to check those out. I also have a 60-day course if you want a slower, more lesson-based thing. Anyway, more on that later. So the box for this tablet is really minimal. It's surprisingly thin when you get it. It comes with Samsung's patented impossible to tear off sticker tabs. And then inside you have the tablet itself. This thing is almost identical to last year's S9. Just looking at them next to each other, they're pretty much the same. The cameras do look a little bit different. And also this looks just a touch thinner, but we have the same screen size. We have the same tab. I went with the moonstone gray color because I got silver last year. I wanted to change it up a little bit. This is a very nice looking brushed aluminum finish on here. This is a phenomenal, really premium feeling tablet. If you find this review in any way helpful and you decide to purchase this or any other device that I have reviewed, check out my links below down in the description. It's an affiliate link and it helps support this channel. Now, like I mentioned before, underneath the tablet, it comes with the S Pen in the box, no extra cost. The pen itself is a mid-tone gray this year. And there's also a power cord here, but no power adapter. There's also this little doohickey for opening up the micro SD card slot along the side. Now, the Tab S10 comes in just two sizes this year. In the past, there was an 11-inch, kind of a smaller standard version. This year we get the 12.4 inch, that's the Plus, and then we get the 14.6 inch, that's the Ultra. Both of these are 120 hertz tablets. They both have what Samsung is calling dynamic AMOLED 2X displays. This is not to be confused with the latest screens on the new iPad Pros, which are dual OLED displays, where they're actually taking two OLEDs and layering them on top of each other to get it brighter. But this still looks phenomenal. Samsung just knows how to make beautiful displays. This looks really good. It is crazy bright. The colors pop from the minute you get this in your hands. The viewing angles are insanely good. The new thing this year is they've added this anti-reflective coating. It looks a lot nicer than I expected. It works surprisingly well. And even though I don't really use these things outside, you can use it if you're in the shade outside and need to draw there. Now again, this year, I went with the Ultra because there's nothing else out there like it. I have seen 12-inch tablets before. My iPad that I use is a 12.9-inch iPad. But 15 inches, man, that's what makes this so special. This also has a notch along the front, at least it's along the top if you're using this in landscape mode, which is usually how I draw on it. They do this to house the front-facing cameras and those sort of things. There's also some facial recognition in there as a way to unlock this tablet. That notch has never really gotten in the way of any of the drawing tools or apps that I've used, at least not yet, partially because this screen is so big that most of the Android drawing apps out there expand to fill the size, so that top space up there doesn't have any tools or anything I've ever needed to access. Now the bezels on this thing are super thin. That means from time to time I accidentally will have my thumb on the side of the screen without realizing it, and it'll make the rest of the tablet unresponsive. So I have to think for a second and say, oh, move my thumb, now I can scroll around again. Holding this thing with two hands is definitely recommended. One, because you just have more stability, but it's easier to navigate from either side with your thumbs. Same thing when using the keyboard, at least in landscape mode. It can be really hard to like reach your thumbs all the way around this thing when you're trying to type on it. You rotate it over to portrait mode, it's much easier to do it that way. Now they do make a keyboard cover accessory just for that. I did not pick one of those up because I just don't use this for typing all that much. They also have another kind of cover, like a portfolio cover. I tried to use last year's because I still have that, but they've moved the cameras just a tiny bit, which means the camera holes don't line up and I can't use that anymore. Now the pen, it charges along the back, but you don't need to charge the pen in order for it to draw. So you might be wondering, Why do I need to charge it then? They've included some Bluetooth features here, like the ability to take a photo remotely and that sort of thing. Different apps have kind of taken advantage of those Bluetooth features. There is one neat Bluetooth feature that this pen has added recently, and that is this haptic feedback. Now, I've seen other pens do this, but this all comes back to app support, right? You're drawing with the pen, and it provides a little bit of haptic feedback, a little bit of shake, so it feels good to draw with, or it feels a little bit different to draw with. None of the drawing apps that I use have implemented this, which isn't really that surprising since it can only be used on Samsung tablets. However, Samsung has their own drawing app called Pen Up, which is actually not too bad. It's a free app, so if you're looking for a free drawing app, you might as well try it. It has added in that haptic feedback. It also has some like audio cues as well, so if you're using a pencil, it sounds like a pencil, like there's an actual pencil sound effect as you draw. It doesn't have some of the things that I like in many modern drawing apps, like some of the hand gestures and things like that to undo and that sort of thing, but it's solid. It's a good start. Now, I did mention how close this design is to last year's S9, so I went looking for the specs, and this was a little bit odd. Samsung's site does not list what the processor they use in this device is, so I had to go digging elsewhere to figure that out. Now, last year's S9 used a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but this year they're not using the next gen, the Gen 3 Snapdragons. Instead, they've switched over to a MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus. Now, some people on the internet are disappointed, imagine that, but the switch seems to have some reasons for it. Samsung said that some of this AI features they wanted to roll out with this tablet just worked better with that processor. And it looks like MediaTek's processors have improved dramatically over the last several years, so you're not giving up a ton of performance, at least in terms of drawing. Now, some of the things I saw online said that if you're looking for like a gaming machine or something to use that way on Android, that is an area where the Snapdragon is just going to outperform here. But for art and illustration, you're not really going to notice. The base storage configuration is 256 gigabytes. That's the model I decided to pick up because it's the cheapest, and I don't need a lot of storage on my tablet. It also helps that there is a micro SD card slot here, so if I ever did need more storage, I could just pop something in there and use that instead. You can pay more up front. I think it's $200 to move up to like that 512 gigabytes of storage. On the Ultra, you can go up to a full terabyte. That sets you back, I think, another $200 or so, but that configuration goes from 12 gigabytes of RAM to a full 16 gigabytes of RAM, which might come in more handy with some of the art applications, especially if you're dealing with huge files. You're just going to have less crashes. But I will say 12 gigabytes is probably going to be fine for anything you need to do. It was fine for my giant drawing files that I'm using for my comic. Now, the big feature that every device maker is pushing this year is AI, and it's the same here on this device too. I know. Illustrators, not a fan of AI. What they're doing here is they're doing like circle to search. They're doing like a web page summary AI thing. They're doing some other stuff in here too. I would classify a lot of these AI apps as like parlor trick apps. You know, they're searching in ways that you couldn't search before, or this app where you could draw or sketch something out and then it takes that sketch and it renders it into what might be the worst AI art I've ever seen. And I don't like AI art, and this is bad. Not my thing, but it's here if you need it. Some other cool features that have returned from last year is that we have our S Pen packed in. I mentioned before the facial recognition on that front camera. There's also a fingerprint reader underneath the glass. Since I use a lot of Android tablets, something that I really like about these Galaxy tablets are how dang good the speakers sound. It's a little thing, but like when you first get this and like hear even the ambient noises it makes, like when it turns on or you boot up a YouTube video, the speakers are shockingly good for something this slim. I don't know how they do it. Apple does it too, but it's another area where with cheaper Android tablets, you notice it right away that that's a place where they cut corners. Not here. So if you see me drawing here and you think, hey, that looks like fun, I want to try it too, especially on a screen this big, you should check out my website, bradsartschool.com, where I have 2 courses, my Introduction to Digital Art, where I teach some of the skills and techniques that I use here, but I also have a Learn to Draw in 60 Days course. really geared for beginners, people who are brand spanking new to art, who are just trying to understand the basics. And it's designed for you to take those 60 days to learn the basics, so when you jump over to other courses, other lessons, you'll have some understanding of those fundamentals. bradsartschool.com if you want to learn more. Check it out. Now I need to talk about drawing more because this comes with the S Pen packed in. Now this is a Wacom powered pen, and if you know anything and have seen my videos, you know that Wacom makes some of the best drawing tech out there. This isn't Wacom's best pen. This isn't their Wacom Pro pen. This is the one they pack in with a lot of like Windows tablets and Android tablets and things like that. So if somebody's using one of these pens, it usually means that they're paying attention to artists and illustrators. Many of the other pens out there have a lot of wobble to the line, a lot of wave to the line. Almost every other Android tablet I've tested has that problem. And that's the thing that really sets the Samsung Galaxy tablets apart from, I think, pretty much every other Android tablet I've tested. I will put an asterisk here for XP Pen's tablet that they released earlier this year, because that has XP Pen's pen to it. Very nice to draw with. But outside of that, Samsung's in a category of its own when it comes to art. Now, this pen is very lightweight, especially if you compare it to like the Wacom Pro pen or the Apple Pencil. So it doesn't quite feel as good in the hand as like a pro level pen would. However, the lines it produces are smooth. They're really accurate. You get a nice release of pressure. You don't get any wave to the line. Overall, it's a really nice technology. And the fact that it's packed in while other tablet makers are charging $100+ just for the pen, it's a really nice upgrade. One thing that the S Pen does do is it has like a little rubbery tip on the top. And the reason why is this is a glass screen. When you draw with a plastic tipped pencil on a glass screen, what's going to happen? It's going to slide around and you don't have a lot of control. So instead of texturing the screen like what XP Pen did with their Android tablet, which dulls the colors quite a bit, instead what they did is they have that rubber nib. It gives you some resistance. Now, it doesn't feel natural. So if you're used to drawing on something else and you jump over to that the very first time you use it, you're going to be like, this is weird. This feels odd, because it doesn't feel anything like drawing on paper. It almost feels like drawing with a really tiny eraser at first, but it is one of those things that you do get used to. And because the pen is accurate, because the pen gives you a good line, I've really gotten used to using these over the years, and it's why I really enjoy, or I've learned to enjoy, these pens. One area where there is some weakness, and probably the reason other companies don't really go with the Wacom pens all the time, is palm rejection. It's not super bad, and it's something that you can turn off in a lot of Android apps, which is really nice. Sometimes you'll find these settings that will say ignore my palm when the pen is on the screen, so you're not going to leave a bunch of extra marks and that sort of thing. Those are really nice. But all in all, I'm a fan of the S Pen. Another thing I do talk about in these videos, but not as much as I used to, are just all of the drawing apps that are now available on Android. Just a few years ago, it was like a ghost town. Finding a good drawing app was really frustrating. Clip Studio Paint is what I'm using in this video. I love Clip Studio Paint. I think it's really fun to draw in. It is a paid app. You do have to pay an annual fee to use it. There are some free apps out there. High Paint is worth looking into. iBiz Paint X, also worth looking into. Those are both ad supported. I think with iBiz, you can pay to get rid of the ads. High Paint, I think you're just kind of stuck with them, but High Paint is like a Procreate clone, and they did a decent job. There's also Krita, which is a full-featured version of the desktop app. It's crazy. However, I think that gets a little bit clunky in the Android interface. It doesn't work quite as well as it does on Windows or a Mac. However, it is there. It is free. If you're interested, you should at least try it. And there's so many others out there that are worth checking out nowadays. But that is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra. My favorite Android tablet, hands down. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.